Hey everyone, welcome back to the RPCast, otherwise known as the Ronzo and Pugcast, minus Pug plus Zaka, my soon-to-be wife. We're getting married very soon in space. Hey Zaka, you know what I was thinking the other day? You know what happens a lot when you play a character as great as mine? You get stabbed a lot. So there's a lot of medical roleplay to go around. So that got me thinking we should probably make that a topic this week because I come up with all the topics because I do all the work around here. So that's our topic this week is medical roleplay, magical and otherwise. So joining us is Ellie of Aquitaine. Ellie, say hi and give yourself an introduction because I'm not going to.
Well, that's kind of rude. I mean, you invited me here.
I did, but I wanted to make you work for it.
Okay.
Well, I don't know what you're doing these days.
Well, I've kind of switched from, medical roleplay to, political roleplay, so it's kind of switching gears a lot.
Oh, there you go.
Still like pulling teeth, however.
Yeah, exactly.
Herding cats, pulling teeth. Is there just as much anesthesia?
Yes, there's a lot of self-medicating going around, let me tell you.
Oh, I gotta respect that. Gotta respect it. Then we have Rona. I kept getting his name wrong last time. I got it wrong again just now. Rona, say hi and give yourself an introduction because I'm not going to.
Hi, I mostly roleplay for the purpose of this cast. Rona Giddon, a magister in the Pact, specifically the head doctor of the 53rd Battalion.
Is that what Rona does?
Yes.
I thought Rona just hung around.
No, that's what Ronzo does.
Boy, is my face red on that one. Zaki, you want to do it? You want to say hi?
Well, everybody knows me by this point.
Yeah, but everyone wants to hear your voice. They don't come to hear me talk. They come to hear the anime girl.
It's really true.
But then what about the first few episodes?
That's why, I did my best, I guess. Zach, why don't you go ahead and ask the first question?
All right, then. What limits do you think there should be on magical healing, if any, in regards to serious injuries like loss of limb? And should the healer be subject to some sort of consequence if they can heal injuries of that magnitude?
I'm gonna interpret that consequence not as in like they should be particularly weak because that's a later question, but to the effect of if you attach a limb, you should not just be able to do that repeatedly, and I do think that should be the case. Healing should expend some sort of effort, the same as fighting should expend some sort of effort. You shouldn't, fight 6 armies and then be like, yeah, I'm ready to go, unless you're from Dynasty Warriors. So you similarly should not be able to just literally magically reattach 16 limbs in a row.
Sick Dynasty Warriors reference. That got me going.
16 is a very specific number.
It is a specific number.
Yeah, just threw it out from somewhere. I don't know.
That means 8 people lost both their arms.
4 people lost both arms and legs.
What do you think, Ellie?
Well, I don't think it's very plausible, even with magic, just because of, basic physiology. The only races I think that can get away with, having their limbs grow back are, Sylvari. Or if you have some kind of reptilian race, then that would be plausible. But humans, forget it. You lost a thumb, it's gone. You lost a leg, sorry, you're going to have to get a peg leg.
Oh, I should clarify. I was thinking in the case of you had the limb to reattach.
Well, even if you have the limb to reattach, I mean, it depends on how big the limb is. If it's the tip of your finger or a toe, then yeah, you can reattach it, maybe, do some physical therapy, get some feeling back in there. But an entire arm, I don't see that realistically and believably working.
See, that I always saw that, whenever people do something like that, I always think it's lazy. Because if you're going to roleplay your character losing a limb, just fucking double down and just have that player that character not have that limb anymore. Otherwise, what's the point?
Steampunk. Yeah, get a mechanical arm. It's badass.
Is that a thing?
I mean, it can be a thing. I think it's more realistic to get a mechanical arm than it is to reattach your arm.
Yeah, really. I mean, Ronzo lost his eye, and I never had them put it back in.
I mean, get a bionic eye, sure. That's more believable.
Only if he'll only do if it's X-ray, and that's wildly in character. Then for him to get an X-ray eye, especially just to see through women's clothing. Go on, Rona.
Well, I mean, for one thing, we're in a realm of magic, so I think there's a degree where you could be believably subverting laws of physiology. But even beyond that, I think it doesn't really matter that much. Part doesn't matter as much as just if the person like wants their character to not have their limb reattached, and they tell me that, I will simply have my character fail to do it because my character's job sure is to heal people, but if someone's for out of character reasons doesn't want to be healed, I don't want to just literally magically ruin their fun of not having a limb or something. Whereas if they want to not have a limb, whereas if they don't want to not have a limb, but through whatever means they have, and maybe they only accepted it because they expected it to be reattached or something, like they accepted the injury. I don't know, and honestly,
well, if you're gonna get it cut off and you do the role play and you get it attached, magical or non-magical route, and it's not robotic, which it should be because robot arms are fucking rad.
Totally.
You should more or less role play that they don't have as much function in it, and if they do, it needs to be a long therapeutic healing process.
I completely agree.
You got to commit to it for like months.
Yeah, that's what we call good role play, and that's what we like around here on this channel. Good role play. That's why
my character's perfect.
I know. That's why we keep trying to get Tyrese Washington on, because he's a perfect role
He's my
player.
hero.
He is my hero as well. I had to mention him at least once a podcast.
He saluted to me once and called me captain. I mean, I think he likes me more than he likes you.
Probably, but I do tell him that I'm a big fan. All right. Anyone have anything else to add? Because the next question I'm going to ask is pretty much it's basically the other side of the coin. Not the coin, but a coin. What do you think? Because nobody interrupted me, so I'm going to assume no one had anything else to add. What do you guys think about that same question for, non-magical healing, as in just, medicinal surgeries, surgical stuff? Maybe
like limb reattachment.
I'm not talking limb reattachment in particular. I'm talking about, do you think there should be any limits on non-magical healing, like Magitech or prosthetics or just normal like medicine?
Yes.
Yeah.
Fucking okay. You're gonna elaborate on that, honey?
Well,
you can elaborate,
yes.
Rona. I'm upset with it. I'm upset with Ellie. She has to think about what she's done. Rona, you answer the question.
All right. I specifically think there are certain aspects of medicine that we in our current society have that would make no sense in this universe for several reasons. I mean, one, I don't imagine we have mass production of things like needles, or if we do, I haven't seen any indication to it. If someone has it, please link it to me. I'd love it. So, I don't think shots are necessarily common. Conversely, on the other hand, that we have magic, so why would we need to develop certain aspects if we can literally just hear magic water and you feel better and you're not queasy anymore? So,
Yay!
Exactly, right? Like, and that.
Well, we're talking about non-magical means, though.
Well, I know, but I'm saying that I think the fact that there is magical healing dramatically affects the level of non-magical healing we can realistically expect them to reach.
That is an interesting take on it. I haven't thought about it that way. So you're saying because there's people with magic that people will be less likely to even invest in like pharmaceuticals and stuff like that.
Yeah. I certainly don't think that it would be completely stifled. I think that there would especially be certain people who had the opinion, oh yeah, well, I can do it without magic and I'm cool because of it. Look at this, guys. So, it's not going to be completely a dead thing, but I do expect that it would be it would not be certainly wouldn't be where we are if we're also running around with swords and basic rifles, but flintlocks. But I don't think it would be as far advanced, even if more of the technology might make it seem it would be. Yeah.
One thing to note is that there was still like shots and syringes even before like the Industrial Revolution, so those were still around. They just weren't disposable. Like you just had to re-sterilize them every time, like between uses.
Exactly. I would just think that Oh, that sounds terrible. Actually, now you say it, makes me hard. It's now that you say that, it makes me think like an elementalist might be able, like if an elementalist is a healer, they might be able to make a syringe out of ice or rock.
No, gosh, reusing syringes is the worst thing ever. Because literally every time you use it, the tip gets bent back and it makes a bigger hole each time.
Well, your point is valid, but it doesn't really apply when they don't have another option. Which
I know.
Like,
you know what, Zaka? I'm gonna go back in time and tell them that they're fucking up. Maybe that's why they got their shit together, because I went back in time. Look what we just discovered history here on the podcast. Thanks, Zaka.
Hey!
Let's get married.
No.
Okay.
One thing to note is that I have encountered a lot of role players who didn't want to accept magical healing, because there's a lot of characters who are skeptical of magic and who don't trust it. And especially like if they're more of like a commoner character, they're not going to just blindly trust, the crazy magic lady who wields fireballs.
Them damn finger wigglers.
Exactly.
Yeah, I haven't encountered that much, but now that I think
I've seen it, especially with healers, and we're going to get to this a bit more in a second, like necromancers who kind of, I've seen people like, I don't think she's around anymore, but her name was Rhapsody, or not Rhapsody, that's somebody else. It was Anastasia Ruin. She would do, like, she would take the wound onto herself, and I don't know how kosher that is. I don't really know a whole lot about the necromancer lore in terms of stuff, but
I've seen that a lot, actually.
I've seen it. I like it within reason. Like, if it's going to kill your character, don't do it. But, like, if it's, like, busted ribs or, like, bruises or, like, maybe a cut, like, I always thought that was cool.
Yeah. And I suppose it makes sense because of what necromancers can do.
Yeah, I mean, I think I like the concept of healing in that capacity where there is a takeaway, at least on somebody's part, where, like, it's not like, okay, but you're hurt, I'm healing you, both people are fine. It's, you're hurt, I'm healing you, now I'm hurt and you're sore. And, like, I like that a lot, because it makes you actually have to do different role play. Anyone else, anything to add before we jump on? Because the next question is also about necromancers.
Yeah, well, I do find it a bit odd, like the level of non-magical healing. I don't know if we really go into it. I certainly have seen plenty of Asura RPers who are like, yeah, I have a Magitech arm, and I don't think that's bad or wrong. It's fine with me. I don't know if it makes as much sense in other races to have, as developed a limb, which is to say, if you're a Char, you might have a really kick-ass steampunk claw hand, but I don't imagine it would have 5 really, like, prehensile, as you would expect your fingers to be, fingers on it. It might be more of a gripping utility.
Could it have, like, a jackhammer aspect?
Oh, it
you
totally
just put, like, a big rubber cock on the end of it?
Iron Legion or Ash Legion?
Iron, sure.
Then yeah, definitely.
That's rad as fuck.
That's
put a big rubber dong on the end of it and just flop it around on the battlefield. That'll fucking show Mordremoth what's up. Okay, we're gonna jump on.
Why did I agree to be on here?
I'm not really sure, but we are getting.
I've already asked myself.
Same reason you agreed to get married to me, I guess.
No.
Like I said, just slit his throat during the wedding night. Problem solved.
I welcome the thought. I cherish the thought.
Then his dick gets near me, and that's gross.
It's so small, you won't even feel it.
It gets near nothing, trust me, honey. It's so tiny. Zaka, you've upset me. Ask the next question. Actually, fuck it, I'll ask the next question. We're talking about necromancers. Do you think they have an advantage? And by the way, before you even jump on this, I want you both to know that this podcast isn't just Guild Wars roleplay, even though it's mostly the community and the videos always have Guild Wars pictures. This is about roleplay as a whole, across any spectrum, tabletop, video games, fucking LARPing. So if you have anything that applies to any specific games or any specific context or lore, feel free to shout it out. Don't feel like you're just being contained to talk about Guild Wars. I want you both to know that. That said, this next question is specifically about Guild Wars, so I'm going to ask it. Do you think necromancers have the advantage in terms of healing on to elementalists because they learn about the body before and after death and what happens to it?
Well, I think it's kind of sticky because the actual gameplay, elementalists are the stronger healers, but in character, I've seen that necromancers sort of like be borderline overpowered with their healing capabilities, and I've seen necromancers be able to tell genders of babies from pregnant women just based on like a simple sort of blood ritual. I've seen them be able to tell like, you know, paternity. I've seen them be able to like completely heal scars. And I feel like they sort of take a little bit too much liberty a lot of the times. And
Now,
very rarely have I seen very skilled necromancer role players who make it believable while not being too overly powered. You know what I mean?
Too edgy healers.
Too edgy. Like, oh, there's nothing I can't handle. Hair flip.
Hair flip is a nice touch. You're coming back on this podcast, goddammit.
I honestly have not encountered very many necromancy healers, and the only one I did encounter, incidentally, also tried to stitch up a wounded Sylvari with leather, so that he was kind of a dunce.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
What was Malleus? Was Malleus?
I wasn't gonna call him out.
No.
Yeah.
I didn't say his name. I said, what was he? Was he a necromancer? Because I remember him healing Ronza with a slab of ham.
Yeah, that sounds like Malleus, all right. But yeah,
Never change,
most
baby.
Of the time, I see. And in this case, I think it really depends on the type of injury. Like, if you consider a necromancer's power as either channeling the energy of death, or, and I should clarify also, I'm not sure that necessarily every single necromancer has studied the intricate workings of death. Certainly, in the case of if you are going to acknowledge that you have every single mechanical ability allowed a lot of necromancers, maybe you have, but if your character is just specializing in the spectral powers, I don't think they would, strictly speaking, have a leg up on anyone for healing. Whereas, sure, if they studied the body, they should. But if they studied the body, they're a doctor. And I think that one distinction that I'm now rambling into is that there's a difference between a doctor and a professional doctor or medic and the class that your character is.
Yeah. I mean, and of course, unless your character, your backstory says that's what it is.
Or if your name is something like Death Blood Caller.
Fucking dibs on that name. Dibs forever on that name.
Somebody probably already has it.
No, I will sue. Zaka, what do you think about the question, not about Death Blood Caller?
Well, yes, I feel that necromancers would technically have a higher healing potency. You forget that necromancers' abilities within Guild Wars 2 is they sacrifice one thing to get another. So, well, yes, they are technically better than elementalists. Elementalists don't have any drawbacks from healing.
I disagree.
Yeah, but necromancers can't create, water fields for me to blast. You know what I'm saying?
Is that a sex joke?
It was a World v. World joke.
Sounds like a sex joke.
It's a sex joke.
Actually,
there you
what
go.
I was getting at, though.
Fuck it, it's a sex joke.
For an elementalist, one thing that's mechanically, I get fun for the gameplay, but questionable for in-universe mechanics, is the fact that everything is gated by cooldowns in this game, not by any sort of your character gets tired, except for dodging, which, okay, but I don't think that any character should be able to just magically heal indefinitely. I think that there should be some level, something they should exhaust something of themselves to perform the healing. And in the case of a necromancer, maybe that's taking the wound to some or the full degree onto themselves. For an elementalist, maybe that's the mental taxing of calling forth water, shaping it into the form you need to purify someone. Or
yeah, I mean, for elementalists, I would assume it would be no. I feel it wouldn't make any sense if the tax was any higher than it was just to use the elements in any other facet, unless there's a specific thing you have to do it. Yeah. I feel like using water magic to heal somebody should take no more away from you than using fire magic to kill somebody.
Well, I feel like that I would disagree with, because I think fire magic to destroy, it's a lot easier to throw a torch into a fire than it is to sanitize a wound, I think. You can certainly just
I have to agree there, yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying it should be, I'm saying it should be just as taxing. I'm not saying it should be any less, less as delicate. I'm just saying you should have to use the same amount of.
I mean, it's the difference between hammering in a nail and drawing something, I guess, something far more mentally taxing. Like it's not. It might be physically like draining to channel the elements, but it would also be mentally taxing to focus it more. Whereas with a fireball, you just summon fire and then get over there, and then it explodes and you're done. With healing, I think it's more a matter of containment, right? You need to accomplish a specific
Learn
goal, and you need to
control.
make sure that you don't.
I suppose that's
Yeah.
more or less. I agree with that completely.
Thank you for the second countdown. It was just a quick recap to say that it does take a stronger sense of control to heal than it does to destroy, because you can destroy with no control, but to heal you need to have like precise healing. Like if you're healing just a small like tendon, I think the caster needs to have some degree of mastery and control.
Yeah.
Whereas any novice can throw a fireball.
That's true. That's accurate. Sorry if there was a bit of a hiccup there on the recording. Lana cucked out because Lana's a cuck. What you missed was more or less what Ellie just described, and Rona besting me with words. She was forced to AFK because the recording cannot exist for I am perfect in all ways. But Ellie, thank you for bearing with me through the countdown.
We were basically just harping more on the fact that a necromancer might be able to draw the power into them, but an elementalist would certainly be taxed as well. Whereas a necromancer is gonna, oh, you have a cut on that tendon. Well, I'm just gonna, now my tendon's cut and yours is fine. And then they can sustain it with life force or something. But for an elementalist, they should certainly have some repercussion as well. And for say an engineer healing someone, they should have repercussions. But I think theirs are more going to be on the lines of limited resource.
What do you think? What do you think the most ridiculous class like in any MMO is for healing? Because I was thinking about this.
You can only shout people better.
Like, so I
know this.
Okay, I was gonna say that's an amazing one, Rona, but go on, Sasha.
10 points to Gryffindor.
Shake it off! Oh, my leg is fine.
Automatic rifles in the automatic rifles in the secret world are technically a healing weapon.
Lol.
My
shoot somebody to make them feel better.
My favorite one is in the Old Republic, where the Inquisitors shoot lightning at you, and then you just feel better. Or they hit you with darkness, and then your health goes back up. That's just one of the dumbest things I've ever fucking seen. I love it.
This isn't an MMO, unfortunately, but the stupidest one I can think of is in a Warhammer game, Space Marine. The only way to heal at all in the campaign is to get a melee kill on something. It's literally the only way to regenerate your health.
That game's incredible because Space Marines are the best thing about space.
It is.
It's going on my YouTube channel. Check it out. What do you think?
Oh, I'm low on health. Let me just smash this. Okay,
I meant more of an IC thing, but I do love that because that's how it is in the new Doom. It's like you kill people if you need health, melee style. Anyway, let's not get too far off roleplay. But Rona, I love you forever. Ellie, do you have an answer for that question?
What?
The question is, what's the most ridiculous IC healing class in any MMO you've ever seen?
I mean, I instantly thought Guardian, but that's just because of an inside joke between me and Jamie.
Jamie and I.
They also shout people better, but at least it makes sense. They don't shout, shake it off, and you get healed. They shout receive the light.
I would actually take them more seriously if you did get healed when they shouted, shake it off.
That's a Taylor Swift song. Is Taylor Swift a Guardian?
Yes.
I think she would play a Guardian, actually.
I think she'd play a thief. She'd be a daredevil.
Although, now that you've mentioned that we're allowed to bring in other MMOs and role playing, if we
go ahead.
We
have to run up the clock.
I wanted to mention for the first question about magically healing things. When you're in Warcraft's universe, World of Warcraft, the priests and the paladins and the shamans, they channel a holy energy that is literally supposed to be completely restorative in nature. So I think in that kind of a game, it would make a lot more sense for to reattach a limb with this holy light than I think it necessarily does to put the limb next to where it was and then just got some water going and you're fine.
Blast it.
Shake it off. Oh, I'm good.
Yeah.
Oh, my limb.
Thanks, my limb.
Some prayers will do you good, son.
Mm-hmm.
When's World of StarCraft coming? I want to be Jim Raynor. Now I can think
You
about
can't be Jim Raynor. He walked into PTSD world or something.
Walk into a wall.
All right, so we're gonna move on. This is a question actually for Ellie, because the reason I thought specifically of Ellie, because I've seen a million medic role players in my time, but what Ellie stood out to me as one of the best ones I've seen, because Ellie was able to, it's a rare compliment. Ellie was able to fucking sit down and talk shop about medicine with me, because I worked in pharmacy for 4 years, so I know a thing or two about, like, I don't know a lot about medicine. I didn't go to school for it, but I worked in it, so I know a decent bit about medications and what they're for and what they're actually called. Like Cialis, it's a good one. But Ellie was able to do that, and that's why she jumped to my brain when I came up with this idea. So I want to hear this answer from you, Ellie. What do you think? How advanced do you think Tyrion medicine is in terms of being able to basically compete with magic?
Well, I look at it as in terms of the other technologies we have and what, in comparison to those technologies that we had in medicine, like in our own time frame, right? Like we apparently have airships and submarines, and we have consoles and like data pads and stuff. So I thought, okay, like what would be realistic to be able to like make or synthesize in terms of like chemicals? I think we would at least have a penicillin, or at least a version of a penicillin. And I did do some more like basic, like everyday drugs that are some over the counter, a few, prescription stuff, but nothing too fancy, like, like cancer cures.
No, tadalafil?
Yeah, pretty much. But let me admit something. I did a lot of Google searches and research whenever I do like medical stuff, just because I want it to be as believable as possible.
Well, there's absolutely no reason to ever apologize for doing background search into whatever your character is. I sat down for a good hour, and if you know anything about how I made Ronzo, that's the most work I've ever put into him, just to find out the names of techniques and stuff for picking locks and lying to people and stuff like that, and psychiatric, or I'm sure I'm using the wrong word, but things to trick people into believing that you're a good liar.
Psychological.
That's the word. Thank you. Thanks, darling. But I think that's great. I think more people doing medical role play should sit down and look this stuff up, because people should know what they put in their bodies on a daily basis. When I worked in pharmacy, you wouldn't believe how many times people would tell me, "Oh, I need this medicine." Okay, what is it? Oh, I don't know what it is or what it does, but I take it every day. I'm like, well, you fucking idiot! You should know what it is. So people should know that, and if you're going to role play that, you should know it as well. Otherwise, why would I take you seriously if you don't know what you're talking about?
You should also know what kind of symptoms you're going to get depending on what kind of diet your character is following, or at least the doctor character should know what those effects will be. And if they can communicate that with the role player, they can make a more immersive role play experience.
Or in Ellie's case, which I also respect the shit out of, the long-term effects of being on a medication, or the effects of taking too much of it, or being away, or the effects of not having it after being on it for a long time.
Withdrawal.
Exactly.
Oh, that was fun.
That was a lot of fun. Ronzo almost got stabbed. But what do you think, Rona? I know I let Ellie go on because, she can talk shop, but can you talk shop?
We know you can walk the walk, but can you talk the talk?
Not to that degree, I would say. If someone brought up to me that they wanted something in that vein, I would jump on it immediately. But for the most part, I've noticed that when people come to my character for healing, it's going to be for a direct, I have a stab wound, right? So it's like, well, let me just remove that, right? It is something I find interesting, but it's also something that I personally, like in the case of nutrition or in the case of side effects of medication, I don't generally, Rona predominantly uses magic to heal people. She doesn't usually prescribe the medication unless she has to. So that doesn't come up as much for me. But on top of that, in the case of nutrition especially, I find that like fascinating, and I would think it's really cool. But I also personally could not sustain something on that because it would be something I would honestly forget about, and I can see why someone would enjoy it. I just do not believe I would. But if someone wanted, my character to look into it for their, like, if someone wanted it to come up for their character and wanted Rona to be able to reply to it intelligently, I would certainly, invest effort to look it up in that situation.
So I think it's a good enough answer. What do you think, Zaka, my fiance?
Not your fiance.
Mazel tov.
Thanks, girl.
Ohio. Baby.
Soon.
Personally, you should look up if you're going to do anything with your character, especially if it's mental illness, because otherwise I'm going to shank you.
Oh, I don't want to get shanked, so we better do our fucking research.
Seriously, I have seen so many people just be like, "Oh, I have this," and they're completely incorrect. And I was just like, "Why?"
So weird. So we were talking that got off in the more on how to research something, but the question was more or less. How advanced do you think Tyrion medicine is? And Rona, you are allowed to answer that if you didn't already.
Yeah. Well, I think I did discuss it earlier when I was discussing how I think the presence of magic would sort of hinder the rapid development. I also think that I do agree that there are certain things that we would think of making no sense and working, and things that we would not have in the universe that we have now. So, I don't think we have a large, a large selection of antibiotic ointments or something, right? I don't necessarily know that we, I don't even necessarily know that there's even like a common cold in universe, right? So there are certain things like that I don't know. I don't have any lore standpoint to say. If someone came in and said, "Oh yeah, my character has these symptoms," unless they out of character informed me otherwise, it's like, "Oh, I'm fatigued, I'm sneezing, or I'm fatigued, and I'm like getting chills, and my nose is stuffed." Well, I think you have the cold, right? I would not go into more depth unless they gave me a sign that it should be more depth. Should I? Maybe. I don't know. I don't really know what in universe we have, because there isn't really a lot going on that we've seen. There's a case where someone gets stabbed like once and is dead instantly, and there are other cases where they get stabbed repeatedly and don't die in universe.
Logan's hard to kill.
Well, there is a lot of NPCs in the open world that talk about several different diseases, and there is no indication that magic necessarily cures these diseases, which is why I sort of introduced actual pharmaceuticals into my roleplay, because I don't think magic should cure all. You know what I mean?
No, I completely agree with that. I one thing Rona as my character cannot do. She can restore damage to the body. She can cleanse some poisons. She cannot do anything about diseases, because that is either a virus, which is not dead, or which isn't alive to begin with, or
exactly.
It's bacterial, which is an organism, so she can't her attempts to restore it to restore the body would just also rejuvenate the disease. So she is completely useless in those regards. Fortunately, we for some reason haven't encountered one of those yet. But so that's, I agree on that. I also don't recall these NPCs, but I'm not saying I don't believe you. I'm just saying that I should perhaps listen.
Well, there's only one or two cases. I think it's on the Wikipedia. If I find it, I will link it to you, but I have to do some digging.
I appreciate that.
Well, all right. So we'll move on a little bit, unless Sokka wanted to add anything.
I'm good.
All right. So, would you so we're talking about medicine. It's just a question. I didn't even know this existed, but magical bandages, is that viable over a pack of poultice, or rubbing alcohol for cleaning a wound in game? More or less, I think the gist of this question is, how do the two alternatives between magic and non-magic, be it medicinal or char, magitech, whatever bullshit,
can I jump in on this?
Yes, please. I would love to hear your voice.
Magical bandages sound like a waste of resources, because not only would you have to enchant it, but after the bandage is used, you'd have to throw it away. And there is no mass production of enchanted bandages. And it's just why?
You know what? That's a good industry to get into. You'll make a lot of IC money if you do that.
Yeah,
We
like
should.
I would say that it would make some sense that there would be something like that, but I don't necessarily think that it would like literally be magic bandages. So one thing that I've done, or that I've used a lot of, and feel free to steal this or call me a crazy asshole.
Well, I'm gonna steal it and then call you an asshole for stealing it from me.
Okay. One thing that I use a lot with when someone's suffering from like malnutrition or exhaustion is something to the effect of a magical concoction, because I mean I presume we have magical concoctions, right? So it stands to reason that we would have one for medical purposes, and this one's to the effect of basically providing some level of nourishment to someone who could not otherwise eat, providing some level of hydration to someone who could not, necessarily keep something else down. And of course, it's like something that my character will use, but it's not something that I've necessarily thought in depth about if we have a lot of it. I only ever use it like once or twice though, on any one person. So I'm willing to argue that it's not something that she can mass produce, but it is something that she can just use. Also, I make people roll, and then if it's depending on the result, either it tastes like vaguely lemony or just like the most worst, awful thing, just as another side effect of magic, right? So it's sure, I'm not having fun with it, but also maybe it's me being lazy about this, but it's also most of the time that I've brought this up to people who are being treated, they've been like, yeah, that makes sense, or they've not been like, I don't really think that's a thing that you should have, right? They're just like, oh yeah, that sounds cool. So maybe it's just different. It's also a different audience, I suppose. Like right, like I'm a head medic or head doctor of a military group, so a lot of the time, if you're going to the doctor, you need to be better and able to fight shortly. Whereas if you're a doctor in basically any other situation, you probably encounter people who will have very different opinions. So I would love to hear another response to this.
That's all you, Ellie.
Well, I just remember Elle telling people in character that they need to rest, and they're like, but I need to go back. She's like, no, go to bed. And they just kind of look at her like, but me,
Yeah, I've done that too. It's like, this will not fix you. It will simply promote you getting better. Now rest. And some people do it. Some people say they rested and then are back on the field tomorrow.
I mean,
yep.
It is boring to roleplay resting. Though usually, I mean, that actually brings up a good question of how long.
Sleeps.
Yeah, that brings up a good question of how long you usually, like obviously depending on severity, have your character recovering for. Because Ronzo's been, basically I always roleplay the same character in every game with a little bit new twist on him, so I always have a character who gets stabbed a lot. And whenever I do, depending on the severity, I'll either have my character be out for like a week or weeks at a time, or just a couple of days, depending. What do you guys think? Like, how long should your character be on the mend before they're out doing shit again?
I mean, as a general rule, I'd say 1 to 2 weeks. Anything more than that will feel too prolonged in like RP time, and anything less than that will feel too rushed, depending on the severity of the injuries.
Yeah, keep in mind, like 1 or 2 days in RP, like in RP land, feels like forever.
Yeah.
Well, not everyone is as impatient as you, honey bunny.
That's not true. I'm the most patient man I know.
Okay. So, in the Pact Guild, what I usually do is, depending on how severe their injury is, I will ask them, I figure it should probably be for something like this long. Is that okay with you, right? Like, some people might really want their character to take a while. Like, I had a situation where we recovered 2 people from some Mordrum camp or something, and they both had been in one of those toxic sludge pods or whatever. And one of them was like, no, this should take her months to get over, like, because, she's malnourished, she's been stabbed repeatedly by Mordrum, she's, just been suffused with toxins or whatever. So their character took months. And then another character who was also there was like, he didn't have quite as severe injuries. So what ended up happening for him was that he was fine within a few days. And he probably should have taken longer, or maybe she should have taken less time. But really, it's up to the person who's injured, I think, to some degree. Sure, it's up to the DM to explain the severity of a wound, but then it's really up to the player to, if they don't want to have their character completely out of it for months, they shouldn't be. It might not necessarily be realistic, but this game is more about in character anyway to me.
I mean,
and
that's
feel free to disagree.
I agree with that completely. Like my big thing with that is like if you have a scheduled role play like arc that you need to do in like let's say in 7 days, but in 5 days there's like a pretty standard like patrol or like fight event that you need to go to, and your character gets hurt at it, but you still kind of need to be at that plot arc in 2 days. Like that's when it's an awkward spot. Usually I'll go, okay, maybe I won't have him get hurt that much, or maybe I'll have him recover a little bit faster this time because he has to be there to fill this role, or more or less.
I mean, I think a lot of injuries would take actual months to heal, so a week is actually very reasonable, like in real life time for a character to be on the mend or like convalesce.
I love the usual responses. Well, how come it takes so much faster in game? And the answer is usually, well, magic.
Yeah.
Or people want to go back to killing stuff.
Yeah, I need to get back to ERP.
Yeah. Well, you can.
Well, I mean, you can ERP while in a hospital bed. You just get said strapping young lad to come in and do all the work.
Is it me? Am I the strapping young lad?
Oh, I mean, you get a strapping young lad to your room.
There's some strapping involved with this young lad, but let's not get into that.
Top keck. Doug, you want to ask the next question?
Well,
unless Rona had something to add.
Well, I do think that a lot of this comes down to the same basic principles of right, like the whole point of this is for everyone involved to have some degree of fun. And sure, it might not always be fun to participate in every single event for a particular thing, because it's never fun to do every single thing for anything. It'll either start to get boring, or or a particular situation will just rub you the wrong way, or whatever.
I'll rub you the wrong way.
You do. So with healing in particular, I think it's a bit not quite touchy, I guess, but it is one of those that's very, very subjective. Like I've had a situation where they came back from an icy attempt at the mouth of Mordremoth, and someone's had just lost their arm completely. But they said, I asked them Brona's going to try to reattach the arm. Do you mind? And they were like, no, go ahead. I'm like, all right. So in that case, I roll to make sure that she gets right, because she's been healing a bunch. She's has a lot to do. She's stressed. So the arm is now 4 degrees off or something, or 2 or 3 degrees off. So you're going to need a serious amount of work to get your aim right after that. Even if it's something that small, it's going to be huge. So this is the price, right? That I would think is at the very least worth it here. On the other hand, if they're like, no, I want, like another person came in and their eyes had been like seared out, and I was like, okay, she's going to try to regenerate your eyes, but they're very delicate, so it's going to be very hard. And they're like, well, yeah, she would certainly try, right? And so she didn't succeed in regenerating these person's eyes. They have lost a significant amount of their vision, but they can still sort of see. And this was, in this situation, it's all about, what do you want what are you willing to accept my character doing for yours, right? Conversely, I shouldn't bring that up, never mind.
Well, now you fucking have to.
I won't name names, but Ronzo will recognize this person, as will Zaka. This person came in because they had passed out for some reason, and then explicitly told me exactly what I needed to do to heal them. And my reaction to this was the opposite, right? Like it was like, okay, she's gonna try this. No, you have to do this. And I was like, well, she wouldn't do that first. No, but you have to do this. It's like, no, I don't, right?
Sounds like bad role play to me.
I think the opposite of what I'm getting at here is it's not the opposite. It's like the converse. It's what I'm discussing. What do you want your character to have? But in reverse, this is exactly what I want, and nothing else will work. And that's not allowing the two people to interact, right? Which is the whole point.
Yeah. Well, we're running low on time, so we're gonna move on to the next question. Those were great points. I love the inclusion of the person who will not be named. Fuck that guy.
Yeah.
His name is Fuckface.
His name is Fuckface.
His
For
tears
now.
can cure the dragons.
No,
This is canon.
His tears can kill the dragon. Also, Avon is the pack commander. But that was not even bad. I love Avon. He's the best. Okay, so what is the next one? Zach, ask the next question.
There are cases of good role play healing that requires your treatment and time over option of snap fingers issue solved. I understand why players would ignore the quick healing and continue to play the injury, but what about when good roleplay for the healing is given?
We more or less just covered. Yeah, we more or less.
I don't like this question personally. Not against whoever said it.
Yeah, fuck this question and fuck whoever wrote it.
The way it's worded just feels like, what if they don't like how I did it? Right? It just, you need to ask ahead. You don't just walk in slashy dodges. You don't just walk in knocks everyone out. Right? No one's going to accept that. Right?
Oh, is this the moment? Is this the moment? This podcast where we say don't be a cunt? Because we haven't said it yet. It happens every time. We haven't said it yet.
We're getting there. Just give me a minute, and then you get to say it, okay?
No, you say it. When you feel it's time to say it, you scream it.
Okay.
I want to hear you say
Don't
it.
be a cunt.
No,
Okay,
this is the time.
All right.
Okay.
But it amounts to just like someone saying, I RP'd out just restoring this wound really well, and they didn't accept it. That is their right. Did you ask them ahead of time? If you ask them ahead of time and they change their mind, that's their right. They can do that. Just because you are a healer and they said okay to the healing, if you then do the healing and they're like, no, I don't like this, your purpose is done. You tried what you wanted and they didn't like it. That's fine. Don't be a cunt and insist it that
yes.
No, I healed you. You should be good now.
Yes,
Let it go.
Give me power. I'm growing strong.
Did I do it right?
Make America great again.
All right.
Well, I honestly think those are great points. Rona, you should come on more often. You make good points. You too, Ellie. Zaka, we're getting married.
No.
I'm invited.
You're
what if
invited.
it was to me instead? Would that be okay? I promise not to touch you.
But I have
That's
tentacles.
a little weird.
I promise to be more
Ellie, do you want to answer the question if you would like to? You're going to have to. I'm going
In
to
fact,
make you do it.
I think I should give an anecdote of when I was sort of icily resigning from the pact and Rhoda was coming in. Our characters sort of had this meeting as one was leaving and one was coming in, and it was actually very amusing. We have this super sort of morally conscious, and she knows she just sort of fucked up kind of character, being all dramatically leaving, no, I my judgment was bad, and then Ronan's coming I'm so much better than you bitch.
Yeah, as long as we're getting the truth out that Ellie did mess up and Ron's was perfect.
Because she totally would have implied that. I don't remember. I remember this meeting. I don't remember what was said.
Oh, it was pretty hilarious. Because I remember she was all take care of them for me. And Rhoda was like, oh, I don't need luck. Okay, bitch, I got this.
Yeah, she would just I don't believe
that's totally what I took from that RP. It's just Rona flipping her hair, being hair flip. I got this, bitch, please. But just go, okay? You can just go.
She honestly probably still has no idea who he is.
I don't even know who you are. Just get out of my infirmary. She's oh, I was just packing up. He's good. Okay, bye. Bye.
Don't let the cat bite you on the way out. Meow,
it was amazing. I loved every minute of it.
Yep. I think that's actually the only time we've interacted IC.
It was. It totally was.
Oh, trust me, you're not missing much.
I remember it. Wow.
Who are you insulting? Both.
I'm not sure. You guys can figure that out. All right, so we're going to speed up through this. What do we have left?
Can I give an anecdote? It's very short.
Yeah, go ahead.
Remember the first time I RP'd with Ronzo, he asked Rona, and I quote, "You have anything to make my dick bigger?" And Rona's like, "No, get out."
I will tell you that Rona is not the first and will not be the last medical examiner for the Pack 53rd that gets asked that question by my character. I don't think Ellie did. No, Ellie did. I know he asked Ellie, and then Tyr before that, and who I think Nike too. And Nike wasn't even a healer; he just asked her. But yeah, that's how it goes. Zaka, did you want to add anything before we ask the next question? Because the next one's a good one. All right. Well, the next one, I like this one a lot, actually. If a character plays a really, let's just say like a Dr. House level healer / medic, should they lower their combat ability to make up for how great they are at healing, which I think more or less comes down to how do you balance your character. I think that's a great question. And I want Ellie to answer first.
I think we should just go straight at Mary Sue and just be awesome at everything.
But I don't want to be Mary Sue. I want to be Gary Lou.
So my answer is yes, and in fact I do that. Rona, she's an expert at healing and she's very good at it. Her combat ability, she can do some elemental magic now, and she's actually a great shot with a bow, but she is so physically weak. Like she can hit something with a longbow from very far away.
But if you sneeze on her, she's like dead.
Well, it's not like sneeze on her. It's more like a stiff breeze would be sufficient to knock her over. Like so it's like she has a small army of like cat golemites entirely because she cannot herself do most of the tasks she has them for. Like she basically cannot lift somebody else's head if it's resting on a surface, unless they're, even if they have, no tension in their neck, like they physically are too weak to provide any resistance. She could not lift anyone but maybe an Asura's head like that. She's incredibly physically weak, and that was all part of, a story of how she even got her magic in the first place. So I think that yes, if your character's supposed to be an expert, like an actual doctor, they should have spent a lot of time, worrying about learning the body or like learning how to correctly heal or whatever. And they probably didn't have as much time to dedicate to it. Now, sure, you can just be, oh, well, I'm good at everything. Well, then you're probably not the best at anything either. And so I would say if someone's supposed to be, generally knowledgeable about a lot of things, they should probably not be as, in-depth about it, which I think is another question, so I'll refrain from continuing that.
I don't know what are the other questions are. I don't read them before this. I have a job.
I was kidding, by the way, earlier. I hope you know
Mary
that, Rona.
Sue thing? No, we're cutting that part out about the Mary Sue bit. That's staying in, unless you're kidding about something else, in which we'll cut that part too. I think again it comes down to don't be a con. Just don't balance your characters. Two characters that are overpowered in any aspect aren't fun to roleplay with or interact with in any sort. They're boring as fuck. There's someone who roleplayed like that when I was in Templars of Arcane, and I hated roleplaying with them because they were perfect in every capacity. They could fight without sustaining injury. They could heal to perfection. They could heal people's wounds. I think they tried to heal Ronzo's eye after it was literally cut out and thrown across the room and not recovered. It's just bad things. Zaka, why don't you go ahead and tell us your thoughts?
I actually have a character in Final Fantasy XIV where he cannot fight. Well, he's not the level of Rona who cannot physically pick something up. He is just a doctor.
Dibs? I've been looking for a doctor to take care of me.
He's also a dude. I've been
waiting all my life.
Yeah, oh god, that's going up on the internet for everyone.
Well, Rona can fight, she just cannot, she's just strictly inferior. Like if someone walked up to her and picked her up, she would be screwed. There would be nothing she could do.
Put me down!
Yeah, also she's terrified of height, which would be even funny. She'd be like, put me down, put me down, put me down!
Yeah, that terrible drop of 5 feet.
Yeah, well, I mean, she's an Asura. That's like 3 times her body's height.
Oh boy, this next question's a doozy. Talk over me while I read this.
Let's talk over you as you read that.
So how do we deal with hypochondriacs in this universe?
I've never encountered one, so I don't know.
They
Like people.
exist?
My mom is kind of a hypochondriac, man.
Like, I'm sure they exist. I have not encountered one to RP with myself.
So what would you? How would you feel about a character
Oh,
who gets
if
injured
the
too
I think
frequently?
it'd be very entertaining, actually.
Yeah, if the person is like role playing it out and it's interesting, yeah, that's fine. If they're just being a hypochondriac IC for the lull and not for like actual character depth, I'm probably not going to find it as entertaining. That said,
What is a hypochondriac? I'm just going to straight up show that I don't know what that word means.
oh, it means
Big
that
one.
it means that you constantly think you have something worse than you do. Like, oh, I've got like a sore throat. It must be cancer. Like, and actually believing it and being terrified, and like going to the doctor and not believing them when they tell you no, you just have a sore
Oh my
throat.
god, new character idea right here, you guys.
It's not
This is
getting
gonna
in
be
the
so
pact.
great. Oh my god, I just joined the pact. He's gonna be a hypochondriac.
Oh, god damn it. I knew I should have denied your app blindly.
By the way,
Oh.
did you guys add a penis to this giant statue in the guild hall?
I did.
Oh, that was Liv.
Because
Hey, let's not talk about the
that's-
guild hall right now.
He has like a mushroom head and a penis. Like, I'm pretty sure these are items that you added onto the statue.
I love how since we've come back with like the second season of this show, and by second season I just mean like the first 3 episodes since Lion left, and I think just one person wasn't so far that's been on as a guest isn't part of the Pack 53rd. It's everybody just comes on. Please, more people try to get on this podcast. I'm sick of these goddamn assholes. I hate them all.
I just like came back. I mean, you guys.
I wish
begged
you
me.
were gone longer.
Begged me.
So to get us back on topic, I don't.
I'm supposed to get us back on
If
topic.
I encountered like in character, I think
Yes.
how would Rona respond to someone who's a hypochondriac? Well, it depends on how they came across. If they just straight up made it obvious to begin with, she'd probably be like, "You have nothing wrong with you," but or she might even go the other way and be like, "Okay, here, just drink this every morning," and she would just give them like sugar water, or. But if they didn't make it immediately obvious, she probably would, honestly try to figure out what's wrong with them until she figured out that it was nothing but in their head. And as long as they're willing to be a good sport about it out of character, which, I mean, it says something about me that I actually think that that's not an assumption I should make, then I would be fine with it. But if they're gonna, like, no, he's really got something wrong with him, well, then what is it, right? So, and that actually
Well, how do you guys feel about the other side of that coin on that? You have the hypochondriacs, or people who think they're sick when they're not as sick as they think they are. How do you feel about like characters like the Black Knight from Monty Python and the Holy Grail, who like get impaled and then they just get up and keep fighting? Like, oh, it's fine, I'm fine.
You mean Lionel?
Oh shit!
I can't keep it down. Like, why did you do this?
What have I? This isn't my fault.
Because the ceiling can't hold us.
Don't lose. Nice Macklemore
that
reference. Don't you lose your shit and blame it on me.
Rona has actually encountered people like that, and the way she deals with it is just us trying to assert herself against. In fact, what she ended up doing the one time was calling Piotr to help hold her down, to heal the person in question. How in universe my character would deal with it would depend on who it was. If it was a Norn, she probably would just say, "You know what? Have a beer, you're fine." If it's someone, someone that can be held down, she probably would try to actually help them.
That's
How do I deal with it? Out of character, if they consistently do it and it seems like it's causing an out of character problem, I don't really think that's necessarily within the scope of this discussion. I think that that's something that you need to worry about talking with them about, right? Like, yo, your character does this, and this is, why, right? Ask them why or something. Maybe might help, might not.
What do you think, Ellie?
I mean, I don't think it would bother me, but I
mean,
I
that
would
always
just
comes across
find it
as
kind of
edgelord
entertaining
to me. Edgelord behavior.
There's a lot of role players out there, and I mean a lot of role players who have like a lot of edgelord characters, and you have to deal with a lot of Mary Sues, a lot of edgelords, and a lot of useless like kawaii like weeaboos just nonstop, left and right, and you just got to learn how to deal with them and interact with them. Yes, thank you. I was trying to be polite about it.
Pieces of shit. Zaka blowing everyone's asshole for the third time. Zaka, what do you have to say about the people in the hunting lodge, by the way?
You still don't own the Honey Lodge!
There you go. Throw it up on the board. It's 3 weeks going, I guess. I don't know. If you don't count last week, we didn't do anything.
Me of an
Oh, I saw that podcast of like, we own this like space. You cannot enter here.
I called someone out specifically, and it was you.
Me?
Yeah, but I'll get on to that later when we're not on the air. Does anybody else want to add anything before we move on to the last question? Really this is the last question. And this was more or less kind of how we answered. We asked this earlier, kind of. How general should a character's medical knowledge be? Like if they're going to be a pack medic, how much should they know about healing a human or like anatomy of just different races?
So the question was,
to follow up. Sorry, more or less, like, could they be like should you have their character be generally a good healer all around, or should they be like, yeah, I do really well when it comes to treating Norn and humans, but not so much when it comes to Char and Sylvari?
Well, I feel like mammal physiology would be fairly like similar in a lot of ways. So the only challenging race to heal would probably be Sylvari.
I completely agree. Rona's that way. She's best with Asura, but she can do really fine on humans and Norn. She's decent as Char. She can't do very much for Sylvari other than minor regenerative stuff. She's not a mender. She's studied with menders. She can like stabilize people if it's not too severe, but no, she cannot heal a Sylvari anywhere near to the degree she can heal anyone else.
I mean, worst case scenario, you can just stick the Sylvari into a pot and say, here, it'll grow back.
Just throw them at the grove. Here, fix this, please. We did that one. Oh, also, kids, do not try to sew leather rawhide onto a Sylvari with a cantaloupe-sized hole in his chest. That's not going to help.
Oh,
that's
also,
pretty hilarious, actually.
If someone's missing a chunk of flesh out of their leg, this is the same person. We mentioned them earlier. Thank you a lot. Don't throw a slab of ham on their. That was an interesting roleplay. They threw a slab of ham onto his leg, mended it onto his body, and then for the next week, dogs were oddly attracted to him.
I'll say this: Rona thought that he was a complete moron, but he was hilarious.
Yeah. So that was more or less the last question. So usually I like to open this up to, do you guys have any good stories that you want to tell that's come out to your mind in any role-playing game across the board in terms of just this topic?
Like the funniest medical RP story
would
probably be Kale coming up to Elle asking him if there's a way to like medically fix his condition for like having this uncontrollable need to sleep with several different women. That was really, really funny.
God damn it, Kale.
No, I think that's an OC problem.
And she ended up giving him this like oxytocin nasal spray. She's like, here you go, shove it up your nose and hope for the best.
I don't know if that would do that.
He still has that, by the way.
No, like I was totally like, just pulling this out of my ass, and it was the funniest shit ever.
Oh god. So I guess that's what happens when your player is just freshly 18.
I was like, look, this is an experimental treatment. It has never been done before. It has never been tested.
In fact, I just grabbed this out of my bag. I don't even know what it does.
Pretty much. I was like, do you want to try it? He's like, yes, I want to stay with one woman. And she was like, honey, I don't think your problem is medical. I think it's mental. Just saying. It's not physical, it's mental.
You got any good stories, Zaka?
That's another thing.
I have a really weird story about someone trying to raise somebody from the dead, but that's a completely different topic.
I want to hear it. I don't give a fuck. I want to hear it.
This is mostly secondhand because I wasn't there.
No, I'm kidding. Go ahead. Ronzo, you're bringing the worst out in me.
Good.
But pretty much what happened was a character fell off a cliff and died. But the player regretted it, so when they were when they were doing her funeral, they're like, we could bring her back. We could bring her soul back for the void if we all do this ritual. And the friend who was telling me this story was just like, I'm leaving.
Oh boy, that sounds terrible. I would sandbag that roleplay so fucking hard if I was there.
Just throw down your nope card.
No, I'd throw down my fucking dubstep so hard to break the Vault of the Gods card and just leave. Oh, it's the worst. Rona, I know you're probably going to have like a 10-minute story, so I saved you for last. Go on.
Okay.
Well, I'm going to go after you, but
Okay.
I'm short.
Well, let's see. Do you want it to be a funny story or more of a just like a general?
Hey man, I said pick like the best story that you want to tell. So I don't know what you want to tell.
Funny. Go for funny.
Sure.
All right. Well, funny then in that case. So this guy comes in after, in his words, he did not flush the toxin from his body using his mind. So he had passed out in the tavern, which is next to the infirmary, because logic. And so Rona's checking him out, and I'm like, okay.
Is this the person we were talking about earlier?
Yes.
Is this like the same person in all the stories?
Fuck that guy.
He has the best stories.
Here's the
Wait,
best
wait,
because
Just
he's
you wait. So what happens
his
is
roleplay's made of fucking trash.
he describes the condition as literally just he's malnourished. So, he's like exhausted from purging his brain or whatever the fuck. So Rona's like, okay, so what she's trying to do is, lift his head and use her magic, which can allow her to temporarily give someone consciousness, or it did. I haven't really used that for a long time since. And he was like, it doesn't work. I'm like, okay. So she needs to get this concoction down his throat, and he's unconscious. Excuse me, is there an elementalist available? And then Ronzo comes in and holds him up while, I think it was Beth, magics the elixir down his throat because he refused everything else. He was like, no, you need to use an IV drip. I'm like, I don't think I need
Like, no, you need to fuck off is what you need to do.
Eat an apple.
Yeah, eat an apple.
Yeah, well,
Right,
I mean, he would, but he didn't.
My
he didn't
story-
want to be conscious.
My story is very similar to the other ones I told. It happened on the Old Republic, where there was a legitimate story arc that I did on my Sith Inquisitor, also named Darth Ronzo.
Oh my god, Darth Ronzo.
It was incredible. Where he pursued artifacts and ancient, writings and techniques without telling anyone the purpose for Sith alchemy because he wanted to pull a fast one and do a Sith alchemy technique to make his dick bigger.
God damn it!
Oh my god.
Nobody
I'm
knew
coming-
until the
okay.
last minute. And
This podcast was worth it just to hear that.
it was great.
Fucking
Darth-
damn it, Ronzo.
Darth Ronzo did some of the most absurd bullshit. It was awesome.
Oh
I'll tell
my
you more
God.
stories sometime if you want to hear them. All right, well, we're more or less at an hour, if not more. So we're going to start wrapping things up. Ellie, do you want to plug anything for any of your other guilds before we call it?
Oh, I don't know. Like, which one should I do? I've been pretty busy. Like, there's one character who's like getting into the whole white mantle thing. There's another one who's getting ready for the entire government to be toppled. And then the Living Story gets released. And I guess spoiler alert: Codicus does nothing of value.
Codicus.
He just like I was expecting him to take over, like in this
He has
like,
a manner, and I'll never
military coup, and being all like, "Mwahaha, Krita is not mine. You're all my bitches." And that didn't happen. You know what did happen?
No.
Nothing. No, he just ran. He ran. I'm like, really? Like,
Well, I
Yeah,
would
but
run too.
where's my dictator antagonist, man? Come on.
I'm just saying.
To be fair, there are now 3 antagonists.
I'm really unhappy with Codicus because his manner is where I watched those demons roleplay watching that Matthew McConaughey movie. And if he didn't exist, if he didn't exist, that might have never happened to me.
Why?
I don't know.
Someone please explain this to me. I need a Ronzo translator.
I'll send. It's on another podcast. I'll send it to you.
He's literally saying what's happening. There is no translation here.
Yeah, that's actually what happened.
Is this that situation where a noble suddenly realized he was an exalted all along?
No, this was a roleplay where it turns out people who roleplay pretty frequently, I know one of them still is around, I think.
There is a role player who roleplays an exalted, actually.
Demons from Earth that came through the mists because they're tired of all the drama. That's we've talked about it. I'll explain it to you off camera. It's fine. Rona, do you have anything you want to plug, honey?
Well, I would
events,
plug the
upcoming
53rd,
events and all that.
Unit, so I don't see the point. No, but
we're only taking, since we're here, and I may as well plug 53rd News. I think we're only taking Vigil at this point. I don't think we're taking Whispers anymore. But or Priory or freelance. I don't know. Guild.
One thing I don't do anything. Plug is just to remind people that I'm in a Peacemaker guild, so there is one. Ooh,
Yeah, I mean, I'll plug. Yeah, if you need Peacemaker guilds, hit up Rona. If you need White Mantle stuff, hit up Ellie.
You can also hit up me because I know someone who keeps trying to found one. They keep telling me how the Crichton Civil War was actually just about religious freedom. Nothing else.
Make America great again.
Yeah, right.
Make credit great again.
Make credit great again. If you want a thief or anything for roleplay, hit me up. I love doing heist roleplays. They're great. Anything else? If anybody ever wants us to plug any events for them or anything on the channel, let me know and I will plug them for you at the end of every podcast. I think that's basically it. Ellie, thank you.
Rona, you're welcome, darling.
Thank you for coming back. You'll both probably be on again in the future. Join us next week when Zaka and I officially get married.
Oh!